Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video. This will be the last video I make of this type, though it's not going to be the end of my 2024 list yet. The next few videos I make will probably be about my top 5 favorite and least favorite films of the year, though I still have a lot I need to watch, so this might take a while. I know that this is a top 50 albums list, but there will be a small mix of EPs as well, which are either over 20 minutes or at least 7 tracks, so I still decided to include them. A quick side note is that for each album, I'm going to be playing short clips of 3 songs from that album. Those songs will be my 3 favorite songs in order from 3 to 1, in case anyone is wondering. Without further ado, yes, before you ask, I am being genuine with this placement. I was completely bewildered to find that You Know Miles actually showed quite a bit of genuine talent on this album. The production is surprisingly good. Yuno manages to rap decently well sometimes, and you still have the usual goofy shit that Yuno does on here, but for the most part, this is an unironically good EP. City pop hasn't sounded this exciting to me in a long time. I'm not crazy about city pop because it's a genre where most songs sound the exact same, but regardless of that, Shinbon Gumi managed to keep my attention the whole time. I really love this project, and I think it's the best thing Ginger Root has made so far. This is one of the more abstract albums on this list in terms of genre, so it's kind of hard to describe exactly what this is. In any case, this record is super creative and unconstrained, as well as just being super colorful in a way that makes almost every song here fun and enjoyable to some degree. This is yet another great math rock album from Tokyo-based 4-man instrumental outfit Toe. This is probably the best thing I've heard from the group since For Long Tomorrow, which dropped in 2009, and it's nice to see that they're still making soothing instrumental music even today. In case you're unfamiliar, The Smile is more or less the lesser-known spin-off of art rock band Radiohead. It still has the same vocalist, Tom York, and while the trio's albums will likely never live up to the level of art that Radiohead has amassed over the years, I really like this record. It seems like the band has finally managed to find their sound, and they take all the weak points that the previous album they dropped in 2022 had and turn them into positives. Kali Uchis has been one of my favorite R&B artists for a while now, and so I obviously love this album. Similar to Sin Miedo, this album is mostly in Spanish, which makes this my favorite Latin pop album of the year. Even though I didn't listen to that many, but that's besides the point. I think this improved on a lot of things I wasn't crazy about in Sin Miedo, and this track list is filled with bangers. I don't have much to say about this one, it's just really easy on the ears. Everything here is so lush, soothing, and charming as the title suggests. Was loving basically every single that Raven dropped in the lead up to this album, and it's safe to say that she didn't disappoint. There isn't a whole lot to say about this either, it's just one of the most soothing R&B records I've heard this year. Don't know where this group came from, and it's probably a bunch of industry plans considering how quickly they rose to fame, but I don't care. If the music is this good, that means nothing to me. This is a great debut album that I liked as soon as it came out, and I want to hear more from them. Similar to Hotel LaRue, there's a lot happening here, and so it makes it kind of difficult for me to describe exactly what this album is, but all you need to know is that this is easily one of the best noise rock albums of the year. This is my first experience with Foxing, and I hope that they drop stuff like this in the future that's just as good, if not better. This is exactly the kind of post-punk music that I wanted to hear. This is yet another great debut album by a small band that I think deserves a lot more recognition, and I can't wait to see what they drop next. I like BTS, but I was never obsessed with their music. Most of the project they dropped never felt complete to me, or at least not as consistent as I hoped they would have been, but luckily the lead singer of BTS, RM, decided to change that for me. RM is a lot more ambitious to me than the rest of the members of the band, and I think that really works in his favor here. This album is kinda insane, which, for a genre like digital hardcore, I should have expected nothing less. It does go unusually hard though, in a way I can't put into words. The thematic focus here is great, which is something I don't see super often from Vince. Dark Times is a very fitting title for the album because the production on here definitely gives off that vibe. The hooks here are super memorable and make me want to come back over and over to this record, kinda like the way I felt about his self-titled project in 2021. My favorite Pegasister dropped one of the most creative albums I've heard this year, blending several genres such as noise rock, industrial rock, and alt metal into a very fluid and somewhat unsettlingly dark LP. I love this, and I think it's probably the best album Violet Pony has ever dropped. I don't like instrumental albums, or even most albums that are mostly instrumentals with very few lyrics, but there are a couple exceptions to that rule. This is one of them. Similar to Violet Pony, I was thoroughly impressed with just how creative this was and how well the drone, ambient, and post-rock sounds blended together. This is another small artist, so give this one a listen if you're interested. It would probably mean a lot to them. I'm always looking out for new artists, specifically smaller ones that need more recognition, so I was more than inclined to listen to this one. I was first listening to this at the gym, and it actually gave me an unreal amount of motivation. There's a track or two that don't quite hit as hard compared to the rest, but the energy here is so infectious that I had to keep coming back to it. It seems I've been sleeping on Ali X for too long, because this is one of my favorite synth-pop albums of the year. Conference with conversation, no astonishment, consuming the comments and then vomiting up the Vonnegut. I got what you got and he's on his own way. An album that I originally wrote off and I thought it was a bit overrated, Samurai grew on me a lot, to the point where I think it's one of Lupe's strongest projects. Lupe is one of the few artists I know of that can make a concept album about Amy Winehouse honing her battle rap prowess and have it turn out incredibly. I beat the beat up like it deserve a whooping. I cut that boy off if he walking around woofing. I'm straight as an arrow, my Gucci hair crooked. I've been getting money off the cheese, also look up to Jesus Christ. All his tool is I need a endorsement with Sprite. Your mama should have put your broke ass back inside of the womb. I ain't never getting married, nigga, one is the groom. I am so incredibly fucking glad that Sosa didn't disappoint with this follow-up. I love the first Almighty So, obviously, and I'm glad to say that this about matches my enjoyment level for the first one. Outside of a few duds, nearly every track on here bangs. Really want to make you blow New Jersey up. This album fucks hard. That is all I have to say. This is the modernized version of Beastie Boys, and I'm loving it. It seems like this duo is having a ton of fun in this album, which is something I love to see, and it's nice that the production just so happens to go crazy as well.
I feel so lonely, especially in crowded rooms.
Now, I'm not big into drum and bass or jungle music, but I don't really think you need to be to go into this album. The production does go super hard, but the songwriting and vocals are the reasons why I kept coming back to this and why it's so high on this list for me. Very consistent throughout the board, and yet another incredible debut. Really bubbly pop record from UK singer-songwriter Rachel Chinariri. Another solid debut that deserves a lot of love. This is a super colorful and funky album that sounds exactly the way its cover looks. An album that's as abstract as its title, Tank has love flowing through it from track to track. Talks about love for a partner, love for your friends, love for dancing, it doesn't matter. The production is great, the lyrical focus is great, the goofier moments still hit hard as shit. I love almost everything about this record. While there weren't many songs here that blew me away, nearly everything on here kicks ass. It seems like Remy has found her sound, and admittedly, I'm a sucker for this type of pop music, so a spot this high on this list makes a lot of sense to me. This is Gene's best effort yet, and I think it's a good direction to see him go. This is a pretty big switch up from the more rock-inspired music he's been creating the past few years, but it's one that I think paid off well. This is another EP, but as I said, I'm counting anything over 20 minutes as an album, so it's here on this list. In all honesty, this would be even higher if it weren't for the fact that it's only 5 songs. Still, even with just these 5 tracks, Maruha is still a cut above the vast majority of artists that dropped this year. I hope these guys drop a full album next year, as I can easily see them making my top 10 list if they do. I know very little about this band, and this is another album that took me a few months to get to. Despite how indisputably colorful and vibrant the production is here, the vocals are really going to be what makes or breaks this album for most people. Luckily, I think the vocals are unique in a good way, and add a lot of character to the songwriting that the record would be missing without it. Mach-Hommy is back with his best album since Pray for Haiti dropped in 2021. There are very few misses here, and besides the fact that none of these songs by themselves made it onto my top 50 songs list, this is still worth a listen. Like the The vast majority of my top 50 songs video I still feel the same way about, but I do have to note that I would probably replace my placement of Here's the Thing with Starburster. The Irish indie rock quintet Fontaines DC is here with another really solid record in their discography, and my personal favorite from them. The only complaint I really have with this album is that they dropped the best material from it as singles a while before its release. The world building is the main selling point of this album to me. Every song meshes together really well into a sort of post-apocalyptic dystopian environment. This album is going to really be hit or miss for a lot of people, and especially a miss if you're not a fan of metalcore, but I personally really enjoyed this. The mixing not being the best actually isn't a bad thing to me. Actually, I think the bad mixing is what makes some of these tracks stand out the most. Outside of the mixing, the songwriting and production here is so unnerving and dark, but even so, this goes really hard. It's not often I find new artists that are this creative and different with their sound. Love this, and I love the art that Gao has been making as well.
Tarantino hit the RZA, left the whole world stunned. Now I heard of Wu-Tang, but never truly knew the year I done that. This rap shit had to get round from that. My therapy helping a boy unpack it. A reason. Oh, the love, the music, the people, the drums, the happy, the sad.
For a long period of his career, Logic dropped nothing but mid or sometimes awful albums. Outside of No Pressure, which was supposed to be his final commercial release, and Vinyl Days, most of what he dropped never made me think of Logic as someone worth rooting for. Never in my fucking life did I think Logic would drop something as good as this. Logic is finally at a point in his career where I am actively looking forward to more music from him. He is at his peak lyrically, conceptually, and some of his best production yet is on this LP as well.
I was banging out the cage, they caught us speeding. We hit the babies in the f***ing call, but my dad, we was bagging up Mary Jane. Snatching grabs out of that cheddar, man. We're surprised the news your lover died. I struck that line, but it just crept erupting from inside.
Mavi really impressed me with this one. I never really thought of Mavi as someone who stands out very much compared to other artists in the similar vein of abstract hip-hop, but this one really resonated with me. The rapping and songwriting is great, if a little depressing, and the production is incredible as well, from simplistic beats like on Testimony to more in-your-face cuts like Too Much Dizelle. This is another album I discovered while looking for new artists earlier this year. This is one of the most surreal rock albums I've heard by an underground band. Nearly every song just has this really isolated feel to it, and it's probably the strongest case of an album on this list sounding exactly like the album cover. Please give this band a listen if you have any interest in post-punk or alt-rock, because this is fantastic.
What we do, top down, what we do, top down, what fucking up guts, wiping up sluts. This my time of the year, little bruh. I don't hang around with them niggas, they suck. My neck piece looking like pears. The Maybach, me and her married. I look down.
Schoolboy Q is back again with his best album in over a decade. Crash Talk was really disappointing, so I'm glad to see that Q is back in full form. Q is on a wide variety of production here, yet he flows seamlessly on all of them. Nunu was really the only track I wasn't crazy about, everything else bangs. Scratch everything I said about me being surprised by Logic's placement, having Yeat make the number 12 spot is batshit insane to me. Yeat somehow managed to go from being one of the new trap artists that I hated the most to being one of my favorites. I never thought he would make an industrial rap album, but he is truly sounding more Twizzy than ever here. Yeat should continue to do this style more in the future because I feel like Lifestyle was a massive downgrade from this album. Smile is a much better album to me than Nurture and comes off as a lot more personal, which really works in its favor. The production is a bit more toned down from Nurture, which is great for my taste, and while there's a few parts on here I don't like as much as others, there's nothing on this album that I necessarily hate. Starting off the top 10 with Bills. Billie Eilish continues to evolve as an artist. Even if I think Happier Than Ever is slightly better than this, Billie works really well with these simplistic, aquatic sounds in a way that gives this album a different feel than her other works.
Can you feel that light inside? Can you feel that fire?
Your hair long and your legs long, and we can both relate to the fact that our dad's gone.
Tyler dropping a surprise album after stating on Twitter that he wasn't going to drop new music is absolutely something that he would do. Outside of the track Judge Judy, which to me has this annoying cadence and delivery throughout the song, I love everything on here, from the stunning vocals by Daniel Caesar on the track Saint Chroma, to punchy and infectious songs like Ratata and Sticky, to the hopeful, emotional cut I Hope You Find Your Way Home. This album grew on me a lot. This is easily one of the best pop albums of the year, not only in terms of consistency, but in songwriting as well. The production is amazing, as to be expected from her, but it's also very different from what she usually does, which isn't a bad thing in this case. There's a lot of redefining going on here, which is what makes this her best album since her self-titled album, in my opinion.
If I walk out on the socket, run that shit up, it's your Sunday. Feeling like Connie, need my deal where I'm aquatic.
Beating me, I'm pressing likes, money, dick, and dollar signs. No, you ain't gon' say it, blow your
Whooping ass since the first, second, and third, nigga. Girls that be in love with me, be the...
Even on an album like Melt My Eyes, which is still my favorite LP of his, Denzel has never been this consistent. Denzel meshes the Memphis style with his own very well here, and every guest featured on the album goes Insano style, with Tia Corinne and Mexican OT having the best guest verses. Every track goes super hard, there are no misses, and that's basically all I have to say about this. This was my first time listening to a Vampire Weekend album, and I couldn't be more impressed. Everything sounds so grand and larger than life, and the songwriting is phenomenal, as I quickly became aware is common with the band's music. Love this album, and I will probably look into more of their music in the near future.
You like movies more than
To give up on being you.
for the teleprompter on the tongue of my shoe.
Quadeca went from being known as a corny YouTube rapper who dissed KSI to being one of the best underground experimental artists I can think of in recent years. This is an amazing follow-up to I Didn't Mean to Haunt You, which is odd since these are, as the title would suggest, meant to be scrapped ideas. Quadeca executes blends of hip-hop, folktronica, glitch pop, and several styles of rock perfectly here.
Anytime you need it, she come through.
I can't do 1 hour a week, I think I need more help. I don't think I need no more fixing, I'll just heal myself.
Wanna kick it with a master, show them who I am, and I should kick it with an activist. Inside Malcolm with the soul.
Peggy is no stranger to assembling a bunch of random shit and making it work, but there is a lot of diversity here, both instrumentally and thematically. The songs toward the back half of this album get very personal and expressive in a direction that I haven't seen much of Peggy's music go in before. Really love this album, outside of some of the weird shit he was doing on track 4.
All I ever wanted was a black Grand National. Fuck being rational, give them what they asked for. Pin, that was back when the only goal was to get J-Rock through the door. Warner Brother, every day a new version of me, a third of me, demented, cemented in pain, juggling.
Who is Kendrick Lamar? For the blind, he is the vision. For the hungry, he is the chef. For the thirsty, he is the water. If Kendrick has 1 million fans, I'm one of them. If Kendrick has 100 fans, I am one of them. If Kenny has 1 fan, I am him. If K-Dot has 0 fans, then I must be dead. My glorious king can do no wrong, and I will not be elaborating on why he deserves this spot. This is one of the best debut records I've ever heard, not just this year, but of all time. Of course, it's not like Jordy isn't used to making music, but it's still incredible for a solo album. In case you're unaware, Jordy Creep was the frontman of Black Midi for a while before their unfortunate separation, which was revealed early this year. The breakup was mainly because Jordy wanted a bit more creative control. Originally, I thought this was a bad thing given how incredible their last record was, but somehow it turned out to be the best thing they've ever done, because this album is better than anything Black Midi has made in my opinion. The character on the album is a complete weirdo and potential sociopath, which works pretty well with the songwriting, which is a bit unorthodox to say the least. The instrumental arrangements on the album are all incredible, to the point where I even love purely instrumental tracks on their own, such as the self-titled song or Bongo Season. Nearly everything about this album is flawless, but I honestly think Jordy might be able to top this.
That's my floor. I'm coming back to oh my God. Make me in your image of my hips, I'll hope forever.
I went from thinking this album was just okay to it being my #1 album of the year. Usually when I see an album, movie, or even game get such high praise, I react to it, but I found this one underwhelming when I first heard it. It wasn't until about 3 months later when I started re-listening to albums I wasn't crazy about previously, this album and Samurai being the main ones. I don't think my mind has ever changed this much on an album before, but it was such a strong switch up. Everything here, from the concepts to the otherworldly synths and melodies, to Mika's vocals, mesh together so well. They make every song sound so complete in a way that pop music hasn't sounded to me in a while. This is probably my third favorite pop album of all time, with no exaggeration, and looking into their other work, this is a huge upgrade from where they were just 4 or 5 years ago. Mercurial World is incredible, but it's just not as good as this. No other albums from this year, outside of my top 5 or so, even came close to this one. For these reasons, this is my album of the year. And that is all of my music year-end list done. I'm going to have a top 5 best and worst movies video out in a few weeks, and past that I'll probably start uploading a bit more regularly. Editing with Filmora has become much simpler and convenient compared to when I was editing with Premiere, so my editing time has basically been cut in half. That said, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in a few weeks.